Our first speaker, the keynote speaker, is Morgan Cole. And Morgan Cole joined Open Door in 2017, where she's helped many customers transition to their dream homes and served as a people leader for sales and support. And she's currently supporting the learning and development team as a senior trainer and curriculum specialist with an emphasis on instructional design, internal partner relations, and creative problem solving across multiple organizations. So when she isn't navigating the world of L&D, you can find her spending time with her Sour Patch pup, Arthur. So welcome, Morgan.
Hello, thank you so much for the warm welcome, Angie. I really appreciate that. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and then we'll go ahead and get rolling. All right. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Very good. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Girl Geek and Open Door Dinner. My name is Morgan Cole, and I'd like to spend just a few minutes chatting with you all about how you can start or continue cultivating a successful career by prioritizing your own self-awareness. Now, before we dive in, I should share just one quick tidbit about myself. I am a words of affirmation girl. It is the love language that rivals all others in my book. So that said, I am going to need your help just to make sure we're all on the same page this evening. So if you all are ready to kick off this conversation, just take 2 seconds for me and go ahead and type the word yes, Y-E-S, in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, just to let me know you're ready to rock and roll. Go ahead and type Y-E-S. Ooh, they are trickling in. I like it. Very good, very good. That was a test and you all passed with flying colors. So let's do it. So a few years ago, Dr. Tasha Eurich, who is a best-selling author, she's a psychologist and founder of the Eurich Group, her and her team, they conducted a study with nearly about 5,000 participants. And the purpose of this study was to better understand the meaning of self-awareness. Okay, here we are. And the research team's findings, they were actually pretty astounding. They learned that there are actually 2 types of self-awareness. The first one is internal self-awareness, and the second is external self-awareness. Now, the thing to note here is that these are not mutually exclusive, meaning it is possible to possess one or both types. Now, before I dive into each type of awareness and the role that it plays in our professional and in our personal lives, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this next question. So if you look on your screen here, you'll see the question reads, how many people do you believe are actually self-aware to some degree? Do you think it's A, 10 to 15% of people, B, 15 to 20%, C, 20 to 30%, or D, 30 to 40%? If you had to guess, how many people do you think are actually self-aware? Go ahead and type in A, B, C, or D in the chat box for me and let me know your thoughts. I see, a handful trickling. It's a mixed bag. Very good. Thank you all so much for the responses. I appreciate that. So while you all are still continuing to put in your choices, I'll tell you, the not so fantastic news is that the average human believes they're self-aware, but only 10 to 15% of those people actually fit the criteria. So the good news is that self-awareness is a learned behavior. What that means is that we can strive to inch just a little bit closer to fully understanding how we tick and what truly motivates us and how to dissect the depth of our perceptions of the world around us. And it also aids in stronger leadership competencies too. So going back to the 2 types of self-awareness I spoke about a few seconds ago, let's explore internal self-awareness first. Now, internal self-awareness, it represents how clearly we see our own values and passions and aspirations, your thoughts, your feelings, and your impact on others. And, studies have shown that this type of awareness correlates with higher job and relationship satisfaction, as well as just general happiness. Meanwhile, external self-awareness, it represents understanding other people's perceptions of our value systems and our thoughts or our feelings, right? So essentially, folks that drift toward external self-awareness, they typically understand how others view them, and they're more skilled at showing empathy and taking in other people's perspectives as a result. So the takeaway here is that it's most impactful to try to strike a balance between both subtypes of awareness rather than over-indexing on one or the other. Because here's the truth, being crystal clear about who you innately are, your own behavior patterns, and what you need and want is a form of leadership. So self-awareness, it catapults your ability to clearly articulate your desires and ask for help in forging the appropriate path to get you there. So this next slide, it's a quick map that actually breaks down 4 self-awareness archetypes, which is basically like how we present to the world based on the depth of internal or external self-awareness that we possess. So I'm going to save you a bit of time, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of these 4 categories. So no need to read through each line. So the top left quadrant, it shows how high internal self-awareness and low external self-awareness is typically referred to as introspectors. And it depicts people who clearly understand themselves, but they rarely challenge their own views. And in some cases, this particular quadrant can limit their interpersonal relationships. Now, the bottom left quadrant symbolizes seekers. These are folks with low internal and external awareness. And people that are currently navigating this quadrant, they might be in a state of self-discovery and may perhaps be a bit unsettled or in a state of flux in their personal or professional lives. Now, going over to the bottom right quadrant, low internal and high external awareness, those are telltale signs of a people pleaser. This means that someone may be hyper-focused on how other people view them, sometimes to the detriment of their own personal or professional contentment. And in many instances, folks that work through this category, they're known to make decisions that are not always in service of their own success. And in some respects, it can be considered a self-saboteur. And last, but certainly not least, at the top right quadrant, that depicts high internal and external awareness, which insinuates that a person is keenly aware about themselves or the external environment, and they value candid feedback from other people. There was a study specifically from Gallup that showed people in this particular category are generally proven to be good leaders in a plethora of environments because they intentionally seek out balance and inter and intrapersonal skills. So those are the 4 archetypes. Now, with those 4 archetypes in mind, and in the spirit of bravery and transparency and leadership, I would love for you all to just take a few seconds just to think about which one of those 4 categories you believe you are currently in your career. Go ahead and just write it down on a sticky note or perhaps the note section on your phone or a piece of scratch paper, whatever you have nearby in your home. And this is only for your personal use. But take a look at those 4 categories and jot down which category you believe you're currently in. Okay. Now, I wouldn't ask you all to do anything that I wasn't willing to do. So in my case, I'm actually going to share my self-awareness experience aloud. Okay, so full transparency, I toggle between being aware and the people pleaser. I do. And I'll share an example that clearly depicts this. 2 of my former leaders at Open Door, they taught me very early on in my career that in order to gain sustainable success, it was going to be my responsibility to always ask questions, to always raise my hand for help, and to speak up and finish what I started. But here's the only problem with that. I interpreted most of those tasks as signs of weakness, almost like a bird's eye view of my professional inadequacies or inefficiencies. And let me just tell you this. Thank goodness for patient and nurturing leaders, because it took about 2 years for me to really get over this hump. And while it sounds a little half-witted for me to say now, I truly believed asking questions or raising my hand for help would inadvertently highlight the things that I had not yet mastered. And my aha moment was, that's the point, Morgan. That's the point. I needed to acknowledge the things that I had not mastered, because you can't fix what's hidden and you can't practice what you refuse to acknowledge. So when I finally came to terms with what was holding me back, myself, I held on to this quote from Thomas Edison that I love, and it reads, "Having a vision for what you want in life is not enough. Vision without execution is hallucination." So while I could go on and on about this topic for days, I do know that time is of the essence, but I want to leave you all with a parting gift. Okay. So I challenge each of you to take about 30 seconds, and I want you to recall a book or an author or a podcast, or perhaps maybe even an article that has been especially helpful in building your leadership skills or self-awareness or interpersonal skills, anything that has helped you in your career. So go ahead and take a few seconds to just think of that one resource, or maybe there's a few of them that you always go to when somebody asks you for a recommendation. And once you have that resource in mind, I would love it if all of you can go ahead and type it in the chat box below for me. And while you all are typing and putting in your resources, I'm going to share 3 books that have been especially impactful for me. Now, the first one is called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's really a good book about getting out of your own way, and it was really helpful for me about 1.5 years ago. The second one is a person that we all know and love, Brené Brown's Dare to Lead. It's a classic. I would venture to say reading it once a year is always a good idea. I always get gems from Dare to Lead. And the last book that I have loved is actually called Get Over It by Ian Van Zant. It's a really great self-help book that talks from a professional and a personal standpoint about removing yourself from yourself so that you can present your best self when you are in a professional setting. So just to recap, my top 3 books: The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, Dare to Lead by Brené Brown, and then Get Over It by Ian Van Zant. Now, let me see what you all have in the chat box here. I've got a couple coming in. The Power of Gentleness. Ooh, very good. Thinking Fast and Slow. Thank you all. Continue to go ahead and put them in as you see fit. And as books and articles come to mind, please continue to trickle them in for me. This is actually my first time reading about some of these titles. So thank you to everybody who's sharing so openly. This chat is chock full of resources, and it's an endless gift to each of us. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And tonight's conversation and your willingness to offer resources to cultivate your peers will continue to build an equitable bridge between different ethnicities, self-identified genders, and neurological differences in this ever-evolving world of business. So take that sticky note or that note on your phone with your self-awareness type on it that I mentioned earlier, and the plethora of resources that you now have in this chat box. And I would love for all of you to use it as a first step to discovering how you can continue to evolve into the best version of yourself in business and in life. So thank you all so much for your open hearts and your listening ears and collaboration. And huge thanks to Girl Geek team for cultivating a platform that acknowledges and celebrates women in tech. I am so appreciative.